Welcome to the January 7th, 2019 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. The first item on the agenda is public comment. If someone would like to come forward, please do so now. I see we have none. So the second item here is Board of Health interviews. We have one opening on the board. It's always nice to see that people have some interest in applying for a position. So Bruce, how would you like to proceed with this?
Yes, this is for the unexpired term of one board members that stepped down, and that term goes to 2021. So they're finishing that term.
After that, it's a 3-year term.
Correct. We do have a memo in the board's packet from Selectman Mark Forrest on who is the Board of Selectmen's appointment committee chairman, of steps that the board should follow on during the interview process, some general questions and background of what the board does and what the applicant can bring to the board. So I think the board could follow that format. What has done in the past is the board has just welcomed the two members and given them both a little background of the board, and then asked. Then interviewed one at each time, and then would make a recommendation to the selectmen afterwards.
Sure. Both applicants are here?
Both applicants are here.
Okay, just so you know, it's a 3-year term. This board meets Monday evenings. It's generally twice a month. And occasionally there's some site visits to take a look at some properties for an issue that will be coming up at a future board meeting. And most of the time that can be done on your schedule, as a rule, most of the time, stopping by and looking at the situation.
Unless it's a scheduled pigeon flight.
Yes. We can go into details about the pigeons at another point, but you're right, that was. So, in what order? Gentlemen here, it looks
yes,
like.
I mean, some training would be provided to the candidates on septic training that myself or Amy would go out to show them a septic system, how that works, looking at variances so they would be comfortable. They could go out and look at other septic systems that are applying for variance for homeowners that are looking to repair their septic system. Packets are delivered of information for the board coming up. The meeting is the Thursday before the meeting. An information packet is delivered, so you would have something to understand what the board is going through, and if there's any questions, you can contact the office.
Yeah, and there's email exchange among members as well as the health department.
Right, if there's a question. Well, we have it interviewing Eric first.
Okay.
And then what we've done in the past is then with Dave, we would just ask you to step outside. They would interview Eric, and then afterwards, Eric, you could just leave, and then Dave will come in, and we'll just let you know how it goes then. Yeah.
Sorry, I was fooling around with my phone, but I'm hard of hearing, so I had to turn the sound up here a little bit.
Okay. Did you miss some things, or did
I
you
did
not?
I was able to turn up my...
Yeah.
I have an app that turned everything up.
Okay.
Ah,
Okay.
Very nice.
The issue then is generally, where's my phone? That's
You can sit right up at the table there, Eric, and
have a seat,
Yeah.
either side. And thanks for having interest, and thanks for coming in. So
Thank you for having me.
yeah. So why don't you? Well, I'm Hillard Bosky. Does everyone else introduce themselves here?
Mary Craig?
Hi, Mary.
Your name? Just introduce yourself.
Hallway.
Okay,
Sure.
so that's the board, and we have one person who's out,
Okay.
who's missing the meeting tonight. Why don't you tell us something about your background and experience and how it might fit into what we do here?
Okay.
They do have your resume, so they have a little background, but if you could just kind
Okay.
of go over your resume.
So my name's Eric Weston. I live in South Yarmouth, and I work in Dennis for Capabilities Farm. I'm the head grower for the farm, so I oversee the production of plant material and the general kind of maintenance of the greenhouses, whether it's plumbing and electrical and kind of all things horticulture, including pesticide and fertilizer application. And I serve as a direct support professional for adults with disabilities that work there as well. So, you know, my background really is related to agriculture and kind of with a focus on sustainable growing methods. And I do have some background with environmental studies, which is kind of focused on soil and water conservation and kind of
All right.
how those two things interact and relate, and you know, hopefully that could prove to be valuable in terms of, you know, things having to do with nitrogen regulations and protecting the aquifer and such. So
What did you do before you came to Capabilities?
most recently I was working for Hart Farm, selling plant material. And prior to that, I was in school in New York State, and I'm from Connecticut originally, so I grew up farming in Connecticut.
Charlie, any questions? Anything?
I like his interest in what he does. So it's something that I think would be rather valuable.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask what other kinds of things you do in the community besides work?
Well, I'm hoping to be on the Board of Health. I'd like to have more of a presence in the community, you know, especially as a young person on the Cape. It's not always easy to make those connections, so I hope that this could be an opportunity for me to have a presence in the community.
Do you know how boards work or how meetings run, or?
I have viewed a few town meetings on the public broadcast network, so I have a general idea of how they work.
No commercials.
No
on it,
commercials.
which is nice.
Let me jump in with a question. Are you able to meet the board's meeting times of twice a month on Mondays, you know, basically 5 to 7 o'clock
Year-round?
year-round?
Yes. Mondays work well for me.
Okay.
So you're living here 12 months out of the year.
Yes, that's correct.
Married? That's even better, like that.
Conflicts of interest. In other words, you own any businesses that, in town or anything that would be a conflict of interest. You had to make decisions here. Environment, there are commercial issues we try to encourage. Businesses here, and they're also trying to protect the environment. I mean, there are a lot of things that are going on. So,
I'm not a business owner, but you know, I feel that I can make non-biased decisions based on the you know, best interest of the town and the community in which we live.
so we switch the table a little bit. Maybe you have some questions.
I am familiar with some of what the board does, and you know, in terms of the work with septic systems and Title V, and but I'm interested to know kind of where the board's going in the future. I know that you've done some work with signage on the bike path, but what does the future hold for the board?
Anybody want to take it or start?
Eliminating all public health hazards in town. We worked with tobacco. We've done a lot of work with tobacco.
Yeah, just increasing the age and accessibility of tobacco. It's been
Flavor products and
it's been a big part of it. We have on the agenda tonight the use of Roundup to address. So that's a hot item right now as of tonight, starting for the board.
Charlie's on a wastewater management committee,
Yeah,
so we're.
tomorrow night, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
What else comes to mind? What else?
Septics are us a lot.
Okay.
They're a big part of what we do, but we certainly are interested in other public health issues, food service. We worked on getting a grading system in place. And Carl's here tonight because of the hazardous waste, the aquifer protection district that exists in town, and that we have to be very mindful of.
But you're right, the septic systems is a large part of what we do, where we get plans in our packets on Thursday and try to get over and look at the sites and trying to look at the design, trying to figure it out a little bit. A lot of it has to do with variances where people don't have a piece of property that's going to work very well.
Right.
And so it's looking at the design of some of these systems and the plans for the homes.
We don't have to look at all of them, but the ones that have variances, like Bill had said, involved, come back to us, or ones that we've asked to see again because of conditions we've placed upon the original approval.
Okay.
How did we do answering your question? We did okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for your interest.
So how long has he been at Capabilities? He hasn't been here very long, right? I meant to ask him that.
It's been a couple of years, I think.
2 years.
Hi there. So it's David. Have a seat.
Thank you.
See, you get to sit a little closer, you hear a little bit more. So,
I'm fine as long as I have this here.
yeah, great. Okay, just let us know if you have to speak up, okay? So just for the record, you can introduce yourself?
I'm David Scheinkoff.
Okay.
Live in Yarmouthport.
I'm Hillard Bosky.
Nice to meet you.
Same here.
Mary
Mary.
Craig.
Yeah. Charlie. Hello. Yeah.
Good.
And Amy, I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Spear, your father?
I beg your pardon?
Spear was your father? Spear Holloway?
Yes, he was.
So why don't you tell us about your background or experience that may be relevant or to the board, or how you could, make a contribution here for the Board of Health?
Well, so I've lived in this town for almost 50 years, and I've never done anything for the town. Nothing. I've been retired now for about 2.5 years. All the work that I've done in volunteer work is centered around either my synagogue, where as president, work on the food pantry, that type of thing, or Rotary Club, which I haven't been involved with in quite a while, but I was a Rotarian here for an awful long time. And I've done nothing for the town, and I think I'd love to try to do it. And I've always wondered about the health department, if that would be a fit for me. And I asked for a meeting with Amy. I've known Amy since she was a child. And I asked for a meeting with her, and she told me about some of the things the board does. And I realized that a lot of things the board does is already pre-prescribed, as nuts and bolts, such as, I suppose, cesspool inspections, swimming pools, and that kind of stuff. But there seems like there must be a lot of openings for opinions and thoughts of maybe being more efficient, doing things perhaps a little bit better. I don't know. I think in terms, lots of times of, in terms of communicable diseases, I think about, God forbid, there is a real crisis in the town or the state. What kind of disaster programs are there for that? I also think about the inspection of restaurants, which is really important because of the tourists that come here, but as well as the other people that come. And I know there's inspections going on, but I'm not sure how well the results are publicized. I always remember, even as a kid in the town that I grew up in, there was always a publication that came out once or twice a year where they had a ratings for different restaurants in the town, A, B, C, D, something like that, where it didn't talk about the quality of the food. It only talked about the safety and the cleanliness of the restaurants. And if you were, let's say, a D rating, well, that was, you were out, so to speak, or suspended. But then there's levels of passing. C, B, A. And I always thought that would be a super nice idea. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. I don't know if I can be of help, but I think I can, anyway.
Are you familiar with how a meeting is conducted? I mean, in general?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it? I mean, of how
No,
things
I'm
work?
not. I'm not familiar with your meetings, no. I have not been that active in the town. I've come here only when we've needed, town meetings when we needed a variance for our practice, where it was located, historical committees when we had projects with my house and things like that. I'm sorry,
Okay.
no, I have not been active in the town.
Well, you're seeing the first part of a meeting anyway.
Yeah.
How we run it. Are you here year-round?
Yes, I am. We're here year-round.
Yeah, it's
We do go away. That's a good question, and you asked me, did I miss anything when you were talking? And I did miss exactly, I think you said twice a month.
Generally, yes, Monday evenings,
Yeah.
start at 5 and usually finish by 7 or so.
Yeah. Well, we travel to see our grandchildren, so we just came back from a couple of weeks trip to LA and Houston. We just got back last night. We're going to go visit my college roommate in February down in Florida. We're going to take a little trip to Tucson, but it's usually anywhere from, I guess in terms of being away, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a month where I'll probably be gone, and that month would probably usually be the month of February, most of it. We're going to be gone this year for 3 weeks in February, so yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Okay,
Yeah. Otherwise, we're home.
we're home.
Otherwise, we're home.
Okay. Any conflicts of interest by being on the board? Anything that comes to
Oh, I
mind?
don't think so at all. None.
Okay.
None. No.
Other board members have some
No.
questions?
No.
Well, I
You
can
have a
just.
question?
Yeah, well, not questions, just kind of explain it. I know, well, maybe Amy wants to jump in because you've had a discussion, but a packet of information is usually provided before the meeting, several days ahead of time, so you'll know what's on the agenda. There's a lot of septic variances that come before the board.
Yep.
So you'd get some training from either myself or Amy by going out, looking at a few septic systems going in, so you understand the components and the soil conditions, whether it's clay or high groundwater and so forth. So you'd get training, and then you'd be able to go out yourself and look at a few before the applicant becomes, asking for the variances. So you'd have a lay of the land to say.
Yeah, I have no problem with time.
Okay.
Again, right now, everything revolves, in my case, seems to revolve around either family or golf or the synagogue.
Sure. Okay.
It's really about it.
Good.
Okay, good.
Or helping my wife.
Yes.
Do you have any questions or concerns or?
I guess I don't. I came and I did talk to Amy, and I got an awful lot of answers there. No, I don't.
Okay.
I wish I could tell you I was some kind of an expert here, and I'm not. My field was optometry, and I don't see how that's going to help me very much, except for a little bit of my medical background there. That might help a little bit in terms of some things, but not a lot, I don't think.
Okay. Anything else, anyone?
No, I think
Thank you for coming
did
in.
very well.
Okay,
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
All
for
right.
your interest.
That's it. So I'm going to leave at this point, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, you were all set, and then the board will let you know how things go, and they'll pass that along to the selectmen.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks again.
Got my hearing assistance and get out.
Yes, and that's why I thought he would be a little bit later, but he's on his way now. I'm also happy.
All right. I mean,
They still have people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yes.
They got people coming, so
Just wanted to just.
we can, I was
I
thinking
think
if they were here, we could take them ahead of time, but
Right. Well, I just wanted to,
yes.
so this first, I move we vote on the applications tonight.
To recommend to the board.
Yeah, I think it's forward to there, so, all right. So what I did, basically, I have two names, the people who just interviewed, all right? And everybody can fold them up. And just check the person that you're gonna vote for, and we'll put them back in the envelope. All right? Right, we're done. Okay.
I think the board it was very nice to have two very qualified candidates and very interested in serving on the board and helping in the community. I think that shows,
I like is the age of Eric, somebody that might get on the board and stay for an extended period of time.
It's nice that people have the interest, obviously, bright, interested in
Right.
helping the town, which is great. So anyone want to,
Nothing.
let's see
Tally the votes?
how it went. It's nice, with only 3 of us here tonight.
Many though.
Look for a fourth slip then.
Yeah,
It's unanimously Eric Weston.
okay.
So I would like to thank the other candidate, though, and maybe keep him in our pockets so that if we have
Yeah.
another
Okay.
vacancy, we can consider him again.
We'll pass that on to the selectmen.
Yeah, so, looks like he may
But,
help
yeah,
us
I
out.
agree, it'd be nice to have a younger person coming
Yeah.
on up and maybe.
Absolutely.
And may have some knowledge about looking at the septic plans that could help, at least would help
Well,
me.
if he has any problem with that knowledge, I'll take him for a little while. We'll go down to Shorey's. And I can explain him the real stuff to him.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So, okay. Done. Number 3 here. Did you want to do something else?
No, they still have people coming in, so let's stick with number 3 on the agenda then.
Okay, and that's protect our Cape Cod aquifer. And the subject under that is banning herbicides on town property, Roundup, or similar products with glyphosate. So, Mr. Murphy, just introduce us to the issue. Thank you.
What the board has before you is a request from the selectmen who had a presentation by Poker Protect Our Cape Cod Aquifer about the town limiting the use of Roundup on town property as a herbicide for protection of the applicator or the drinking water. The selectmen has asked several various town departments to comment on the proposal and to respond back so the selectmen can have it on their January 29th meeting. They've asked other departments to submit written comments, and they had asked Conservation and Board of Health to discuss it at a meeting, which is on for today. For Board of Health, Conservation has it scheduled later in the month. Before you, I have provided comments from various other departments that have responded. And you can go over that, which ones have responded and which ones have not. So I guess that's the general. You have the information from POCA that was supplied also.
Okay, so what
So-
it says here is Gulf responded, Division of Natural Resources responded, and the DPW did.
If you want to give a highlight about how each one responded a little bit,
No,
or
I just, of who did respond, we can go over that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Gulf is a separate entity then, or is it really part?
correct,
Okay, totally separate
correct,
than recreation, whatever. Okay.
correct. Well, it's within recreation, but recreation might have other.
Right.
So recreation
Departments.
should respond separately.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Because they would also have, I believe, I know that towns reorganized a little bit, but I think they would also have possibly the camps under them where they would use Roundup for poison ivy on any of the camp areas.
And as you were just pointing out, we're still waiting for 4 other responses.
5.
Right, Mary? 5?
Cemeteries.
Cemetery, we're adding to the list. Okay, the structures, recreation, community development, and building department, we haven't heard from. Or no one's heard from.
Right, they were on the original email list from the town administrator contacting various departments for responses.
And what is our responsibility as a board?
To review, I think, POCA's request and probably review the applications used by the town to see if it's reasonable the way we're proceeding, or is there an alternative that the board could look at in lieu of using Roundup? Is there another product out there, or could we do away and not use it at all? And I think when you read some of the excerpts from the departments that responded, the town is not using it very much. It's very limited. It's used by a licensed applicator and usually on a direct point application. It's not aerial sprayed or backpack sprayed or sprayed off a truck.
Well, there is a department that backpack sprays.
Yeah.
There's one.
But that's on, I think, by contact, yes.
By what?
By contract, it's not just
Contract. Yeah.
track, yes.
Okay, that they're spraying. As I had mentioned when we met before the meeting, we don't have a sense of the whole town, department-wise, of what are people currently doing,
Correct.
how they're using it, or if they're using for that.
Correct.
Because there's a response from DPW, but there's no specifics in terms of how they're using it, just that they're using a small amount and using proper procedures.
We could ask DPW to expand their comments, but I did meet with the DPW director, and he just said they do have a small amount, as mentioned by a couple of the other departments, and they do use it by a licensed personnel.
But not how or where.
Correct.
If we don't use Roundup or whatever in the town, what else is what do we have for options?
My understanding is that there really is not an option other than the Roundup or the similar chemical for things like Phragmites in particular, because I've had that experience in other places where National Wildlife looked for alternatives to work with Phragmites on the refuge and also in Wellfleet at the Audubon Sanctuary. And unfortunately, there just isn't anything else that is effective, but it needs to be used targeted manner, at the point.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. I was just wondering if there's an option. If there's not an option,
I'm not aware of any, but I am not aware of what POCA, the specifics of the organic treatment that she had talked about. I don't know anything about what it is or its efficacy.
Okay.
Well, part of it is, what is it being used on? In other words, there may be other products that could be used on other types of weeds when it comes down to it. This particular product probably kills most things, but there may be other products that wouldn't be as potentially dangerous. I mean, what we have in front of us is one person's point of view of that organization.
Correct.
At this point. I mean, we don't really even have a point of view of someone saying this chemical is not dangerous. We don't have a lot going on, at least from my standpoint of view, of knowing how to vote on this or how I feel about it. I mean, just from a medical standpoint of view, I found in the literature it's kind of rated as a probable cause of cancer. That's the level of it. I'm not saying it causes, but it's a probable cause. So that strikes me.
Well, I think that's the position POCA's taken, that there's a concern either for probable cause to humans or to the water supply. We did ask them to provide more direct or detailed reports or, scientific data, which they have not done. They have included some of their data within their presentation of information presented. Some of them they reference several court cases out in California and so forth.
Right. That gets a lot of headlines, but I don't know if it makes some decisions just on a court case like that we're all referring to.
Because it doesn't talk about the exposure, the amount, the duration. That's also something to figure in, I think.
And POCA's talking about town property, policy for town property, not the right-of-ways, which Roundup is a chemical used for part of the right-of-way vegetation control, and which is a product both licensed by the EPA and Department of Agriculture within Massachusetts. DPW says they do not use Roundup, the trade name Roundup, but they do a similar chemical that has the same component in it, but it's not the trade name Roundup. So, I think you see from a couple of the other departments, Conservation had a concern with the Phragmites, as Board Member Mary said. Controlling that seems to be the best way to go, and they do it under licensed application with point discharge. And that was pretty much the same comments from DNR, Department of Natural Resources, that they find it best to use for poison ivy control on the trails as needed. And they also use a licensed applicator, and what they say is a cut and swipe method and with a direct contact in the area.
I would be more comfortable hearing from these other departments how they're using it. From the ones that have responded specifically, I think that it sounds appropriate to me, given that they're using it for Phragmites. The Golf also talks about bittersweet and poison ivy. I don't know if there's something that's effective against that, that they could be using instead. But for the ones using it for Phragmites, it sounds like they're using it responsibly and very judiciously.
Those products are very easy to use in that it gets rid of everything. And you see it in everyone's garage when you know, especially that particular brand. So I find it disturbing. It would be nice to know, I agree with Mary, how it's being used, and maybe there are other products that could be used for different problems here in town, and maybe be using less of it. I'm not sure. Amy, do you have anything to add to this? I mean, put you on the spot, but.
No, I mean, no, I don't.
Okay.
Other than I know that there are certain species, I know in particular the poison ivy and the Phragmites, that there really isn't anything. I think a lot of this also stems from the right-of-way. And how that's been handled, and trying to get rid of use of chemicals.
Right.
I'm all for that in general, you know, not using pesticides, and certainly not using pesticides that are suspect for causing some really bad things in humans as well as bees. But we are in the real world, and I think that, you know, if something is being used responsibly and there's absolutely nothing else, and it's something that needs to be taken care of, then I don't think there's the same concern that there would be if we were using it for agricultural uses or widespread spraying.
Because I just know in a lot of the town properties, you go by and the lawns are beautiful. They're pristine, there aren't any weeds, and that's town property, so I'm sure we're using products on that probably are not in the best interest of the health of everyone. Perhaps aesthetically, people like the way they look, but you know, it's difficult for three of us here to, without any background, scientific knowledge, really, to be making the decision. So I agree with Mary. Why don't we hear from the other towns, from the other departments?
I will contact the other departments, ask them to respond. I will ask for DPW to do a little bit more information, put it on the board's next meeting for January 28th, and I'll let the selectmen know that the status.
It'd be nice if they would respond and give us an idea of what else they're using on weeds. What products are they using? That would be very helpful. Well, I would like to know it. You know, what are they putting on crabgrass if they are trying to get rid of it? So, anybody, any other comments on this? If not, we can move on to the next item.
So we'll continue that to the 28th then.
Great, thank you. Okay, the fourth item is a hearing, and it's for Ace Hardware, located at 23 White Path, and it says units, was it L, J, and K? I, J, and K. And this has to do with the increased storage of hazards materials, the way it's worded. Why don't you just have a seat, just introduce yourselves, then we're going to have Mr. Lawson give us a little review.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just
Okay.
just introduce your name for the public who are watching at home, so they
Hi,
know who's sitting there.
Lynn Colangione, one of the owners of Baskin's Ace Hardware.
I'm Dave DeCenzo, manager of the Ace Hardware.
Great, thanks for
No,
coming
it's
in.
Hi.
Come in. Okay,
Carl Lawson, hazardous waste inspector for the health department.
great, thanks. Go for it, it's yours.
Okay, we have a proposal in front of us from Ace Hardware at 23 White's Path. They have about almost a 30-year history at that location. It's a retail setting, open to everyone, not just professionals, and they seek to occupy an additional unit, and that's for the purpose of creating a larger scale paint shop than they presently have. A smaller paint section presently exists within the existing format, within the existing floor plan of the present hardware store. The proposed increase of toxic hazardous materials is all in the area of paint and paint-related products in the amount of about 1,500 gallons. No products are used on site and no waste is generated. The only operation involving paint is the tinting of paint for the purpose of creating custom colors. That's a summary of what's before us.
Okay. So you're referring to that's when a can would be opened up?
Right, when a can would be
Oh,
open
right.
and small amount of tint added before it's shaken to blend it into a different color, into a custom color.
As usual, your review is great.
Oh, thank you.
Really clear, concise, thank you. Okay, so it's your turn, all right? Thanks for coming in.
Hi.
And what should we know about?
Thanks for having us tonight. So, as Carl mentioned, we've been there a long time. It's a good business for us, and it employs 3 full-time people and several part-time people. We would like to expand, not just in the area of paint, in some of our other departments, but the only products that we would be increasing the quantities of toxic or hazardous material is in paint. But by moving the paint into the adjacent unit to where we occupy now, it allows us to expand things like small home appliances, like coffee pots, toaster ovens, which we've seen a lot of interest for. Our electric and plumbing departments could be bigger. That would help us better serve our customers. There's a few places where we would like to grow. We're limited. We're in a kind of strange sort of pie-shaped space, and it would be nice to have this additional 1,400 square feet. The 1,400 square feet, as Carl mentioned, would be primarily for a paint showroom area where we could have a large paint chip rack. It's not just the paint cards where you can see colors, and a table where customers could sit and look at the colors and choose colors. We would also have more expanded selection of paint sundries like rollers, brushes, tarps. So it would really help our whole business and help us serve our customers better. It's already, you know the plaza at White's Path there. It's business. It's zoned for business. There's a lot of businesses that come in and out of the different units in there. The owner of the plaza is happy to have a long-term lease for us to go in there, so there's not turnover. And we're one of the I don't know what you call the mainstays, or one of the anchor stores in that plaza that brings people in, that helps support some of the smaller businesses. So we've had a lot of excitement and interest in the paint we want to bring in there, which is a Ben Moore brand, which is a very popular brand on the Cape. And we've just done the similar type of expansion in our store in Harwichport at the beginning of last year, and it's gone really well. It's been received well. Customers are happy. It's almost the exact same size footprint. And so we feel like we really have a good understanding of what it takes to run that and how much space we need. And so it would definitely help our business. I think it would help us continue to be viable in the time of where everybody's ordering everything online. And so it's a draw. People come in and they like help with colors and all their other projects. So that's what we're looking to do. And we are going to be putting in an application through the building department to get the approval to expand into that space. But this is particularly around the expansion of the quantities of hazardous and toxic materials that we can carry. We're already grandfathered in for the current quantities we have. And as Carl said, it's just in the paints and stains. There's no other department, not lawn and garden, not plumbing. We're not expanding toxic or hazardous materials in any other departments. It's just really for the paint. So, Dave, do you want to add anything?
Boy, she really covered it all, didn't she?
Yeah. So, well, Carl's helped me write it all, so
Oh,
I
okay.
feel very well
no,
prepared.
it is. I've been running hardware stores 30 years, and running a paint department is not really difficult. There's not a lot of spillage going on. Occasionally a can gets dropped, but that's cleaned up quick. Rarely something happens between the car between the truck getting it into the building. Nothing ever catastrophic. Nothing more than a gallon or two at most, and that's rare. But Ben Moore will bring in a lot of business. It's an icon name, you know, in the paint industry, and you see a lot of stores really survive because they have Benjamin Moore. So it's really unbelievable what it's done in our Harwich location. To see it come to Yarmouth and expand what we're doing there is really exciting, and the customers are really excited about it. So I think it's a good move for us, and hopefully you all agree.
If I could add one other thing, as you're probably all already aware, there's been this big move within paint away from toxic, really, the VOCs in the paint, the volatile organic compounds. And so now most of the paint is all water-based. It can be cleaned up with water. It's not, there's this big move away from oil-based. So as Dave said, if there is a spill, it's so easily cleaned up, where there's been a big move in how paint is made, and they're much safer and they're much less hazardous. So that makes it easier for everybody who's dealing in paint to manage it. We will still have a very small percentage of our paint will be oil-based, but the large majority it's all water-based.
That's true.
Carl, what has the inspection history been with this?
They've had an excellent history of compliance in regard to registering for their licenses and submitting 2 inspections. I was there most recently a week ago Friday, and as usual, everything was in great order.
Anything, Charlie?
No, I got no problem with that at all. You're looking for 1,500 gallons more storage?
Yeah.
But that's not gonna be 1,500 gallons of oil-based. You're
No,
talking.
Oh, no.
That's,
No, no.
I wanted to make sure that I understand what you're trying to do.
No, like Lynn said, in the past, say,
would say
25 years, all the research and development in paint has been in the
Oh, I know
latex-based
that,
paints and
but
getting
I was
away
just
from those.
asking how much of that 1,500 was gonna be oil-based.
Good question.
Yeah, I would say about 10 to 15% at most.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
And that product's limited to 1 gallon or less, and since
The
those aren't the
I think
5
there are
gallon.
5
I don't
gallons
think
in
there's
the
5
oils.
gallons
I think
of
all the
oils.
5-gallon stuff is
is
latex-based.
the acrylic, yeah.
That's the stuff that the contractors go in and they get for redoing apartments quick.
So we're not sure of that.
I want to say I'm 90% sure that there's no 5-gallon pails of anything oil-based.
Yeah, that requires that special line and shaker, and I don't think.
Yeah, and I don't think they can anyway. I think it would be out of VSC compliance because that's per container.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of stuff is only available in quarts because VOC compliance per container can only put out so much. So a lot of products are only available in quarts, things that put out a lot of VOC. So I can't imagine anything would be in a 5-gallon pail. And if it is, it would be very, very, very low VOC in order to comply.
Okay. People want to proceed on this?
Just a general information to the board. I think Kyle might have mentioned it at the beginning, but The applicant ACE is before us really for two things. One is for the increase in storage of hazardous materials, and it is within the APD, the Aquifer Protection District. So the expansion brings it in. Plus, this is a existing grandfathered business that did not have any restrictions on it. It's one of the few that businesses that don't have restriction that we came in before the bylaw took effect
1989.
89. So that was the question that the board had asked at one time. Is there still a few stores out there that had grandfathered? This is one of them. So even though we did not see an issue within the health department, it was, to come before the board to have a review. So they're looking, Kyle, if I have this correct, to go from approximately 1,500 gallons they have now to roughly 3,000?
No, it's about 3,100 to 4,600 approximately.
So we want to go to that. Is there any conditions that you're recommending we put on the license?
Yes, on page 6 of the memo, I listed 8 conditions, which are pretty standard.
Do you want
to
to just go over them for the board and the
Okay.
people at home?
The first condition is that in these cases, the board has always established a maximum limit, an upper limit for the business. In this case, Bruce, you felt it was appropriate for the board to establish that limit, and that's why I listed as the first condition. The second
That limit would be 3,100?
No, that limit would be closer to 5,000 because they're at about 3,000 to 3,100 now. The increase will put them at about 4,600. So Dave and Lynn, you can tell me, you can voice to the board how you feel, but I thought perhaps 5,000 gallons would give you a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah, no, that sounds.
Yeah, that's more than enough. So to clarify, we have about 1,500, you're right about whoever said 1,500, in paints and stains now, and we want to increase that by about 1,500, which would bring us up to 3,000. But the total amount of gallons that we have in all the departments is what Carl was referring to, which would bring us up to about 4,500 or 4,600.
Correct.
That would cover all departments, like, oil, small gallons of oil for lawnmowers, like, there's some things in the plumbing department.
Not just
Yeah,
paint.
not just paint, right. But that would give us more than enough. And these are, for us, these are really like max limits. If every department was full all year round, this is it. But like in the wintertime, we have more of some and less of lawn and garden, and then that goes down and lawn and garden goes up. But the limits we're talking about is if we were at full capacity in every department all year. So that would be more than enough, and probably that we would ever really have at any one time in the store.
You were just reading them down.
Yeah.
Sure. Would you like to review the remaining conditions? Okay. The second condition is the store personnel must provide a total inventory of liquid, toxic, and hazardous materials upon request. Not having to itemize every container in the store, but just saying, based on an inventory system, we can tell you that today we have, 4,400 gallons or something to that effect, just to help keep it in check. I'll be doing my own checks as well. The maximum allowed container size for any toxic hazardous material is 5 gallons. That fits with their needs. We've all discussed these limits, and in all the time I've done inspections at this store, I've never seen a product larger than 5 gallons, and only a few, and that's in the area of latex paints and a couple of containers of driveway sealer that I've not seen since. A detailed spill containment plan must be posted and available at all times. Employees must be familiar with the plan. They've already provided me and provided you in your packets with a copy of their proposed spill plan, which meets our requirements and the requirements of the fire department. A dedicated spill kit containing a variety of absorbent materials must be kept on site, properly labeled, readily available. And that's something I check for during my inspection, just make sure that it's not, buried and nobody knows where it is, just that it's available. And this is a little more than they have now. Right now they have oil dry, which is an inert clay pellet absorbent, because they sell it. So they're always well stocked. This would just provide a little bit more protection if they do, drop a tote on the way into the store or something. And then no vehicle washing is allowed. They don't have a need for it anyway. They don't do it now. No vehicle repair is allowed, and they don't have any plans for that. And no vehicle fueling. And they have a company vehicle, but they don't fuel it on site. So, again, some of these conditions are just blanket conditions that we apply to any business storing hazardous materials in the Aquifer Protection District.
Are there any rental equipment that gets maintained there that needs?
Not at this store. They do it at the Dennis location, but not in Yarmouth.
Okay. So you know why you're here. It's basically concerned about the aquifer. It's really
Right. Yes.
water supply. That's so people at home know what we're doing here tonight. That's all. And I just thank you for the plans you sent in. They're really a lot of information. It was really well written. So thank you. Anyone want to make a motion here tonight?
I move that we approve the Baskins Ace Hardware proposed expansion and increase in storage volume of paint-related materials with the conditions that they meet the health department requirements. 10 of them are listed on page 5, as well as the 6 recommendations. The first, the maximum allowed storage volume of toxic or hazardous materials will be 5,000 gallons or less, and the others are as stated.
You have a second to that motion?
Second?
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you all very
Very
much.
much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, Carl. Also.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next item, approval of the minutes, and that was the meeting of December 3rd. I had 3 very small edits I had sent in. I don't know, do we have an updated copy of this or not? Chris, do you have it?
I have it.
Well, you're the one's going to sign the minutes, so.
Yes, there's a couple spelling changes that
really minor
were
things,
made.
just to-
They
this
were
is-
corrected on page 2, the Mary and Sue.
Right, these are the ones that I picked up. I don't know if, I mean, it was in your packet. Anyone else have any edits to make on
Yeah,
it? Those are
just
the 3.
The seconds should be listed also. When we have a motion, the person making the motion is listed as well as the person seconding the
Seconded.
motion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, did I miss
Yeah,
that?
that changed.
Yeah, okay, so potentially someone could not second a motion, and then it doesn't go anywhere, so it would be important to say who did, or no one seconded the motion, and then the motion is lost.
Right.
You don't proceed on it, that's all. Okay, so, anyone make a motion on what to do with these minutes? Anyone,
I move that we approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2018 Board of Health meeting with the corrections noted.
second?
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion, I doubt it. All in favor for the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, it's 3-0. Minutes are done, okay. 7th item here on the agenda is old and new business. Mr. Murphy, is there any old or new business?
No. I have the board's next meeting date would be January 28th, and we'll have poker information requested, as mentioned earlier in the meeting by the board, and we'll also have an update on tobacco, either juuling, there's a couple other things are in the front burner across the state where the menthol will be considered a flavored, and there's a couple things that are just starting to come forward, so I'll try to update, I will update the board with some information on that.
And wastewater from Charlie.
And wastewater Charlie will have something from tomorrow night's wastewater meeting.
Really? Just go down and take a nap.
Yeah. I just had a thought, and it was really on an earlier item, and that was just dealing with the spraying and on just thinking about the football fields a little bit. You know, just thinking about the game tonight, people going to watch. And one of the things you watch these quarterbacks setting up the next play, and they're all putting their hand in their mouth, getting ready for the center to get the ball to them. And, you know, their hands are all over the field. And what are we using on our recreational fields? So it'd be nice if we hear, I don't know who's going to bring that to our attention. Who takes care of the fields? Totally separate. So the school, so we need to hear specifically.
I would ask them, they were not in the original
Right,
request from the
right.
selectmen.
But we
Okay,
can
can you
add
then?
that.
Yeah, we should know.
Yeah.
What are they doing? The fields look great, but that doesn't mean they're healthy.
We can make that note note to the select.
Okay.
Right, yeah, let them do the work on that. Yeah, that'd be nice to know, I've seen these kids with their hands in their mouth and then on the turf, so. All right. Anyone interested in leaving tonight, they'll have to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Yep,
Yeah.
put the hat on.